Good morning, everyone. My apology for the late recording of this topic because of so many arrangement of the various projects that I have. However, we will continue the discussion on mass appraisal today, and this will form part of your exam in the coming days. So let's start. So this is the continuation, as I've said, of what we have discussed before, mass appraisal. So again, mass appraisal, an overview and definition. What is mass appraisal? It is the process of valuing many properties at the same time. So it's different from the private or individual valuation, where you are valuing properties one by one. Mass appraisal is the only system that can address the question of uniformity and equity in valuation on a large scale at a set date. No? So this we are answering the question on uniformity and equity because of the different and the wider span of properties in localities. We need to have a mass appraisal. No? This is one set in a date, for example, June 22. So in June 22, there will be a mass appraisal in a certain locality. To the assessor's office will go to the areas for the conduct of mass appraisal. However, these estimates are not substitute for individual valuations. No? This is a clear reminder that this process is not a substitute for individual valuations conducted by private appraisers or individual appraisers because this is for taxation purposes, no? Broad-based taxation purposes. So mass appraisal is aligned only for this purpose. Okay. Then the preparation of application of SMB is a mass appraisal process. When we do preparation and application of SMB, thus we are conducting or we are processing a mass appraisal, which facilitate the appraisal of multiple properties at a given date. So there is a systematic and uniform application of appraisal methods and techniques. No? We've discussed before the different methods and approaches, no? In appraisal. The sales comparison approach, no? And then the cost approach, no? Cost approach, and then the last one is the income approach. No? So these three are the mostly used in the appraisal, and there are other techniques. No? The techniques on residual, then development techniques and others, abstraction method, and so on. Okay. So the mass appraisal process includes identifying properties to be appraised. So we have to identify, this is important, to identify properties to be appraised. If you cannot identify, the appraisal is entirely wrong, no? Because you cannot determine which property you are appraising. Second, defining the market area in terms of consistent behavior on the part of property owners and would-be purchasers. Now, when we see, say, market area, this is, in other term, this is a neighborhood. No? This is neighborhood, which with homogeneous, no? Pare-pareho. If the neighborhood is residential, no? That would be the market area delineation. No? You cannot lump sum other land uses with certain land uses. So in defining market area, see to it that the neighborhood is similar or homogeneous in each other, so that you can also do justice for the owners and would-be purchasers or buyers. Okay. Next, identifying characteristics of supply and demand that affect the creation of value in the defined market area. Sometimes we call this the buyer's market, no, or the seller's market. No? Kung if a certain area there are more supply rather than the demand, we can see that is a buyer's area. When a certain place have more demand rather than the supply, that is a seller's area. So the main beneficiary or the its advantages to the sellers. No? So that's it in identifying characteristics. Next, developing a model structure, no, that reflects the relationship among the characteristics affecting value in the market. So you can now model structure, no, that would respect, no, in the characteristics, no, of the market area. If in a certain locality there are more residential or the predominant land uses is industrial or commercial. With that, you can have an idea of a model structure that you will do in developing the SMB. SMB. Next, calibrating the model structure to determine, among other attributes, the contribution of the individual property features affecting value. When you say calibrating, you are testing, no, testing the model structure. If it suit, no, to the properties that you are trying to appraise, no, you can compare it with other adjoining cities or municipalities to make it sure, no, that sometimes we call it benchmarking with other LGUs. Next, applying the conclusions reflected in the model to the characteristics of the properties being appraised. No? So conclusions came to being, no, after the applications of this or calibration of the model structure. It is reflected, no, in the actual locality. Then validating the adapted mass appraisal process, model measurements are already including the performance measures on an ongoing basis and discrete stages through the processes. No? So the same through review of data, review of the structures that you have done, you can validate the mass appraisal processes, models, and other measurements. Then the last one is reviewing and reconciling the mass appraisal results. So after this one, you will have now the final draft, no? The final draft of your SMB after you completed this situation. Now, in visualizing, no, the processes, we can see the following, no, the mass appraisal process in developing SMB. We have the preparatory stage, no, where we are fixing the data valuation, the work plan, what would be the workflow, no, the processes, and then the specific dates, no. Then the budgets, what would be the budget for every teams that are involved in the mass appraisal process. Then organize teams where you can organize different functional teams to complete the process. Then you can now base evaluation based on our local government code, which is January 1. No? that would be the base valuation date. Even though the data valuation is example March, however, you can determine the base valuation if the reckoning point is January 1 based on the local government code. Next is the data collection. Data collection after the preparatory stage, you are now ready to conduct collection of data. One, identify the market area. Then establish database inventory. No? So we already discussed about the market area. It is a neighborhood which has homogeneous, no, pare-pareha, almost similar design and houses or land uses. Establish database inventory. You can now have from the different sources. No, you can have a different data. It's either primary, no, or secondary data. No, we know in research there are two kinds of data or sources of data, that is primary and secondary. Primary data, you can get this one either from the register of deeds, no, RD, assessor, appraisers, fellow practitioners, and so on. No, then the secondary, then you can get data from either the Philippines Statistical Authority and newspapers and whatever. So examine transaction database inventory, and then review sales prior to transaction, and then investigate data. Definitely you will have to investigate and validate the data. No, example, if the data is valid, no, if it is valid, meaning do you have similar land uses, no, similar, the highest and best use similar, and the transaction conducted, no, and the transaction conducted. Example, if you're comparable, the transaction is it arm's length, no, arm's length. It should be arm's length, no, arm's length, so that you have a similar. So arm's length or not arm's length. When you talk about non-arm's length, it's maybe the foreclosed properties or under duress, no, under litigation, and then there are problems in the house. Someone is sickly, no, that need to be hospitalized. Those were the forms, no, of non-arm's length. So you cannot include it in your database, no, in your database, because it's not valid, no, it's not valid, and the transaction is not arm's length. Only arm's length because your property being appraised is being appraised as in an arm's length transaction. Okay, so now if you have the valid data and then the inventory, you can now start at the analysis stage, no? So review and amend existing sub-market area. If you have similar, no, homogeneous areas, similar land uses, no, it's more reliable if you have CLUP, no, so comprehensive land use plan, or the zoning ordinance of the area, so that you can compare if they have similar zoning, no, classification. If it is agricultural, your comparable should also be agricultural. If it is residential, your comparable should also be residential, not agricultural and not commercial, no? So the same with other land uses, you have to review and amend different market data. Then the transaction data, what you have here, you can review, analyze the transaction data, the date, and then vis-a-vis the development of the area. Sometimes there are different neighborhoods, residential, commercial, agricultural, and transitioning. The transitioning area is very important because, from residential, it's transitioning to commercial. The value of the property will differ to those who are only residential as of now, and compared to the areas which has a transitioning stage. Then process and analyze data. After that, you have verified the transaction data. You are now ready to process and analyze data. The last stage is the testing of SMB. So here you can use different methods that we have on in your statistics, the ranges, the mood, mean, and the other, in statistical analysis. You can use that one. You can also use other methods, the Slubin and others. We will talk about it later. So you can also craft the working land value map, so that you can easily identify or look, you can use the Google map, in plotting the land value map, Okay, so test proposed SMB. So now you can test the proposed SMB testing. It's akin to comparing, benchmarking with other LGUs, adjoining LGUs and other. So you can have to check the other LGUs, and if ever you can adjust the proposed SMB. When checking LGUs, be sure that the income level is similar. Income level, and then the neighborhood is similar, so that you are comparing apple to apple. Okay, it's not right that you compare fourth-class municipality to a city which is adjacent to you. It's a no. Then with that, you can adjust the proposed SMB and prepare a final draft. So this is the whole process in developing SMB. So as we know, there are in some there are 4 stages, SMB development: the preparatory stage, the data collection stage, the data analysis, and the testing of SMB. So in preparatory, going back, so you have to identify the data valuation. The data valuation is not only the date where you are valuing or you are in the area. You may follow the local government code or whatever the decision. Then prepare a work plan akin to this. This is a sample of the work plan that you have. You have time, you have activity, then you have responsible, the general fund, and 20% of development fund, the sources for budgetary requirements. Then prepare a budget. This one is the budget, and then organize teams. So you can organize different teams that are responsible for different areas, like this one. So this is the project plan, the work plan. On data collection and analysis, so as I've said, the different sources of data are the register of deeds, assessor, tax declaration, appraisers, banks, buyer and sellers, and brokers, agents, and developers. no? So you can also tap other, since we have I have said, we have primary data. Primary data. This one is mostly primary data when you are conducting research or survey with different government agency. That is primary. Secondary, no, secondary is the newspaper, online, internet. No, you can browse the internet. That is secondary. No, this is secondary sources, source of data. Now, as I mentioned, you can identify market area and establish a database inventory from this one. No, so you can now have a database of different sales transaction in an area or the different listings. Then examine transaction inventory database inventory. No, so as I've said, you have to filter, no, to filter those valid and invalid sales data. No, it should be arm's length. And review sales prior to inspection. So you can, particularly this one, secondary, you can have now an idea of what is the movement, no, the sales movement in that area through reviewing sales in the using secondary data prior to inspection. Yeah, that's what we are doing, so that you have a range already of the sales data of the area. Then investigate the property. When you have conducted this one, the secondary, you can investigate, no, verify, and then the primary also, you can conduct collation of primary data. Next, data collection and analysis. As I've discussed, amend the existing market areas, analyze transaction date, and process analyze data. Now you can now process different, like this one, no, lot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dimension, what we did, the size or lot area, the land area, multiplying 10 by 20 and so on. Then how much is the net rent, or if it is selling, how much. Then description of the property, if it is flat land, inside lot, no view, or other factor. No? So that you can make any adjustment on your database. Now, testing a schedule of market values. You can now set interval or value ranges. No, value ranges, as what I've said. Now there are different interval or value ranges that we have. We uses the statistical method, like the slogans or the ranges. No, ranges from maximum or from minimum to maximum. No, from minimum to maximum data. So you have an idea. Then you can count which one are in the maximum side, which one are the minimum side, so that you can determine the possible range of the value of the property. So there is one that working the crop, the working land value. Then test the developed SMB, check the values of other LGUs, adjust the developed proposed SMB, and prepare a final draft of SMB. So next is the tax mapping. So what is tax mapping? Tax map is a graphic representation of an LGU or part of an LGU drawn to scale and having property lines and jurisdictional boundaries delineated, showing all parcels of real property and identifying its separate real property ownership by unique number. Now we have the PIN, property identification number, which is being used by the assessors. So tax mapping is a highly accurate method of field operation for identifying RPUs or real property units, defining property boundaries, determining actual use, and discovering undeclared properties for taxation. No? So when you are doing tax mapping, uh, you are conducting a parcelization of the properties. So it's not an accurate measurement because it's the work being done by the geodetic. However, you have an identification of the property, the boundaries, the lot area, and others of a property. This is for easy access, no? Pinpointing the property for taxation purposes. Okay, so preparing the schedule of market value. So appraisal of lands might be based on the data, no? The residential, you have to look for the employment opportunities or shopping. These are the characteristics you have to look for, no? When doing or preparing schedule of market value. Commercial, there should be an access suitable to markets, no? And there are foot traffic in the area for you to have a commercial. It's not only the measurement. Some of our practitioners, no, what they are doing, it's just there is an ordinance or it's along the highway. They are considering it as a commercial, no? But in appraising properties, we are particular in for the transaction taxation purposes. We are using the actual, no, actual use as a basis, no, of valuation. What would be the actual use, not based on the written or the declared classification on the property. Now, if it's classified in zoning as commercial, and yet the actual use is residential, your actual use as residential would be the determining factor, no? Because it's the actual use. It's maybe the highest and best use, being a commercial. Industrial, there should be sources of raw materials, goods, power, and ports. Okay? So market values for urban lands are enhanced by proximity to commercial, government center, educational, and religious institutions, highways, and availability of water, electricity, and communication, and transportation facilities, as well as access to good roads and avenues. So this is the urban lands. No, particularly we are considering the urban lands because there are contiguous, no, there are utilities available. So there the property values is different from the rural areas, because of these amenities and facilities that provided in the urban lands. So in preparing the schedule of market value, so first you have to establish a benchmark lot values, no? Benchmark. So what would be in a certain area, example, there are different properties. There are different lots. Different lots. Now, in that area, in preparation, you have to look for the benchmark lot area. This would be the anchor, no? The benchmark lot. This would be the anchor in determining the others, no? Example, if the benchmark area is 1,000 per square meter, since this is the benchmark, either it's this is the maximum, no, maximum values in a certain area. Those other lots should fall below the benchmark property. Okay. Next, identifying lot parcels by random selections. four types of probability sampling. Now, this is akin to or pattern to the statistical methods that we are applying, no, in statistics. Simple, you can use lottery or random sampling. You will select at least uh, uh, what we call the number, no, the average number or the modest number of a certain population. No? Then systematic formula that is key, n equals n. That is the number of the subject, then the number of times. Stratified is akin. You can look for different samples in an area, stratified. Every not systematic, not systematized. Just look if you can have a sample of different location, or you can make it as a sample. And then another is the cluster sampling, no, adjacent lots. You just get the figures, no, the values of such, example of this one. You clusterize this one, no, then every cluster you get number of samples. So example, this one, no, sample size of 10 from submarket area 500 properties. Using systematic random sampling, n equals 500. The total number of properties in the area is 500, and then the sample size is 10. So determining k period or interval, k equals 500 over 10. So the result is 50, no? The 50. And then step 2, put random start at 15. So 50 plus 15, no? That would be the case. No? 50 plus 15, then that is 65. No? So you include now in the samples the following: 15, then 65, then another plus 65. So 115 plus 65, 215, and so on and so forth. Okay? Stratified sampling as a Sloven's formula, n equals n over 1 plus ne, where n number of samples, n is the total population, and e is the margin of error. Okay, so example, 100 population, 1,000 population, allowable margin is 0.05. So 100, 1 plus 1,000 times 0.05 squared, no, equals 286. So this would be the number of samples, no, you needed in a population of 1,000. So now there are different situations, cases in developing SMB. For residential land example, there is a direct comparison approach, and also the adjustment of time. This in the adjustment for time, you just use the percent increase, no, method. Percentage increase method we are using in finance, no? Percentage increase. Then the percentage increases where you are, example, the present value, no? the value of today of the property, then minus the previous value, value, no? Then over the present value. So that would be the result. Just multiply it by 100 and you get the adjusted, no, based on time. So using income capitalization approach, we have learned already how to conduct, no, evaluation using capitalization, income capitalization approach. The important here is the cap rate, no, the cap rate. We will have example of determining the cap rate. Okay. Then the residual technique or the development technique. So there are different instances where you can use different approaches and techniques in developing SMB for residential land. No? Now, in commercial industrial lands, this what our local government codes states. No? Commercial land should be land devoted principally for the object of profit and is not classified as agricultural, industrial, mineral, residential. Industrial land, land devoted to industrial activity. Okay, not devoted to agricultural. This is commercial. Commercial, mineral, timber, or residential land. So capitalization of a ground rent, no. In other term, ground rent is the rent for a vacant land, no? Rent for a vacant land. That is the ground rent. It's taken from economic thinker of the past. They use ground rent. No? Even David Ricardo, Malthus, and even Marx, no, uses the term ground rent. So determining the rent or capitalization rate is based on comparable properties which can be gathered from the market. Example, the formula is V equals ICR or VIZ, no? So where V is the market value, I is the net income rent, and CR is the capitalization rate. So to get the value of the property, this is important, no? This is important. Then getting the cap rate, the formula is income over value times 100. So you can get the cap rate, no, of a certain areas. Example, this one, this is the net rent, no? Net rent of an area. So what you need now to get this one, the income, there is already the income, no? The net rent. Just multiply, if it is monthly, multiply it by 12 because annual, no? 12 months, you can get the income. Then what would be the value of the property? Example, if the value of property is 6 million, no, 6M plus the 42,000 times 12, is 504, no? 504,000 no? So using that one, income over value, no? So you can now 5,041 4,000 divided by 6 million times 100, that is the 8.4, no? The cap rate is 8.4. Okay? So with this example, so you can do the other, no? Given the value of the lot is 6 million, you can try in your home to compute what would be the cap rate, no? The cap rate. This is the cap rate. This is the income, and this is the market value of the property. Okay, so you can try to solve this one. What would be the CR on this one? Okay, now the last one is drafting a schedule of base unit market value of residential, commercial, and industrial. Now this would be the case. No, example in barangay 1, you can have a straight A, straight B, avenue A, subdivision A, subdivision B. Then the best vicinity, no? Then what would be the base value? No? Base value 3,500. Then what would be the class? No? Then this is 2003. Now in 2009, what would be the one? So you can check the subclass deeper, no? From sub R4 na mo siyang naging R3 siya, no? And then industrial 3 becomes now industrial 2, no? So you can see that there are areas that grows, no? And there are areas who still remain R2 pa din, no? So C5 become now a commercial 3, no? Commercial 3 naging commercial 4. So you can adjust that one basically, no, on the drafting the schedule of market value, so that you can check the comparison, no, of the different values. Okay, so that's it. Our references is the Mass Appraisal Guidebook by the Department of Finance, Bureau of Local Government Finance, and the Manual on Real Property Appraisal and Assessment Operations, and then the Philippine Valuation Standard of 2009-2018 edition. Thank you and good morning, everyone.